came behaviors, eventually rebellion. And the
Yeah.
Bible tells us, don't cause your children to wrath.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of parents got that. I don't think they got the memo on that from that day and age. And and this is why specifically, that part of the book about communication, as it runs through everybody's theme, is extremely important, because this is the thing that's going to, and as I said in my chapter, what I said was that, in my introduction, I said that, while there are some relationships between mothers and daughters that will never be repaired, because one person shuts down and chooses not to listen. But on the other hand, mothers need daughters and daughters need mothers,
Yes.
And it's important to work through those things. It's important to, like you said, the eye level thing, stoop to their level. And I know most of us, I know myself, I vowed that I would be a different parent, not saying that my parents were bad or anything like that, but I would be different because I knew how I wanted to be treated.
Right, right.
And most of us took that approach, and we didn't know, because we didn't understand what we was going to be dealing with down the road with all of this stuff, that the children are exposed to. So, because you can't, there's certain things you don't condone. I definitely did not condone all that young romance stuff. Oh, you what a cute boyfriend and all that. No, I didn't like that. I allowed them to have friends, but even the boys, I allowed them to have friends, but no romantic stuff, because like you said, you're representing the family. You're representing God and you're representing the family. And you have to be careful who you're running around with, who you're dealing with, because everybody doesn't have the same value system. Not that anybody's better than anyone, but at some point you have to have some type of structure in your life in order to, be productive.
Right, right, definitely. Well, one of the things that I used to say to my children growing up was that before they left, we had the prayer, we talked to them. And one thing was that let wisdom go before you. And so when you're interacting, regardless of what the circumstances are, think about your decisions and the impact that it will have on your life and others. And so sometimes I may say, oh, well, gosh, what can happen? What's the big deal? But it's something that we all have to be mindful of. When we engage, when we interact, or if there's activities, whatever it might be, let wisdom go before us. What are some of the values and concepts and precepts that you've been taught to help guide you through your everyday life? That's what it really is about. How you will engage, how you will interact, what will you do in your everyday life as time goes on is going to have impact on your present and your future. So those are some of the things that we would say to the children before they would leave, but also what we would talk about even during the day about some of the situations that may have occurred in school, or what they may have seen, or what they may have heard, help them process it and discuss it for a lesson for what could have been learned from this situation, that type of thing. I will also say something about when we talk about communicating with the kids and teaching them these concepts and things of that nature. as a parent, you also have to be very, very willing to apologize when you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you misspoke, or you inferred something that without really listening, because sometimes we can make these assumptions that, oh, this is what happened because, well, maybe not. But either way, regardless of the circumstance, being able to listen and also being able to say, I'm sorry, or I didn't take the time to really listen like I should have, or to find out what was that circumstances. So I think that it's something that it also teaches them that, yes, parents can can apologize, but also as they grow up, that they're one day we're going to have to say, hey, I'm sorry if I didn't listen. I'm sorry that I didn't make this meeting or whatever, even though we always tried to make whatever we could for their activities. But if something fell through the cracks, to address it, rather than say, oh, well, too bad. Well, it will impact the child. You may not know it, but it will. So it's important. So, and it does have effect on the family dynamic. And so you want to protect that family dynamic as much as possible, in a positive way, so, and to reinforce whatever you're trying to instill in the family dynamic, by being transparent, and also having the open communication. Because you do want your children as much as possible to come to you and communicate. And as any teenager, we all know that they don't always share everything, but you want to be able to feel comfortable where they can, and also be comfortable to know where to go if they feel like they want to speak to somebody that of value, that could provide value to them.
Absolutely, because and that's part of that environment too. Like, having someone to talk to bounce things off of, and is really important, because some kids will hold stuff in forever, and that's not a good thing. Just knowing that they're able to come to you as a mother. I know with my daughter, she was a little on the sneaky side. So she wasn't as apt to share with me. She would share eventually, but not the way my boys do. My boys will come to me like I'm a barroom buddy. And I'll be like, I don't even want to hear that stuff y'all talking about, but it's still, communication and being able to talk things out, like you said, and listening, empathetic listening is very important with raising children. And it creates an atmosphere, because they know from a little child, how you interact with them.
Right.
They're observing. They can tell, they can tell you, you're not listening to me, or, and we've always been like that, even, us as kids, but we didn't say that.
Different age, right?
We didn't have the atmosphere to say that. Okay.
Right.
I'll just leave that right there. I'm not even going to elaborate.
I understand. Well, I think that also with the communication piece comes with we try to teach our children, specifically to have the confidence to be assertive, and to understand the difference of being aggressive and being assertive, and also to advocate for themselves. And one way of doing that was for us to advocate for our children,
Right.
particularly in the school systems, to
Right.
make sure that they were getting all that they were entitled
Right.
to,
Right.
getting the support. And I will say this, that we've had some pretty good teachers, but also partnering with the teachers, but also having that communication, seeing that dialogue where there's a communication with parent, teacher, a parent, and parent child, and also have basically equipping them as much as possible to be able to feel free to communicate with their teacher regarding
Mm-hmm.
if there was some additional supports that they needed or resources, and
Right.
whatever it might be. So I think that when we talk about communication, there's so many different categories or dynamics that are involved with that impacts a child's life that has to be supported and addressed. Again, you mentioned earlier regarding what type of communication that was affirming, or you heard people that have spoken to their children that in a way that it wasn't affirming. In fact, it was quite verbal abuse, actually, when you're telling a child that they're
Right.
stupid and they're dumb and things of that nature. That gets in their psyche. That also impacts how they perceive themselves,
Mm-hmm.
how they perceive themselves now at the present, and it impacts what they think they can or cannot be as they grow up.
Right. And one of the authors, I'm going to read what she says in her chapter. I'm not going to tell you which one it is because I'm going to let you have that opportunity. But it says, love is one of the most important ingredients for a prosperous individual. Love must be demonstrated in the family. It took me a while to learn how to say I love you. When my youngest one would say it, it made everyone acknowledge the fact that this child was given to us to mend some broken hearts. And right here is the part that gets me, because it says, I cannot recall my mother with conviction telling me that she loved me. My mother cared for me and my siblings, but never echoed those words in my soul. As I matured, I realized that she was dealing with her own issues. My husband also had a rocky relationship with his father that went into adulthood. Thank God we learned, for the sake of our children, that communication was an extremely important factor in the relationship of our family. Now
Wow,
that's,
that's powerful.
yeah,
What she's saying.
that's deep. And
Well, I think again, as you stated, those words are key. Again, hearing "I love you," hearing those, not other than just pick up your clothes, go clean your room, or what did I say? That type of thing. But I love you. You're beautiful. You're so smart. You could do anything that you put your mind to. Those are type of affirmations that I grew up with my mother and my grandmother.
right.
Particular, my grandfather shared a couple words here and there. It's more so grandma, who's going to be 101 July 23rd.
Wow.
Yeah, so and what's so interesting is that she's been able to pour that same type of encouragement and love and support into children as well. So that's something that I think that has been key. And when I write my piece, I had stated about sharing these things even when the children were in the womb. Sharing these things, so these very words, and as they when they were born and as they were growing, continuing to let them know how wonderful God has made them, that they're beautifully and wonderfully made, and things of that nature, and that they have a brilliant mind, that they have that God loves them, and that they have value and